What do conspiracy theories, persecution complexes, and hit Hollywood movies all have in common? Well, they've all come together to create this year's incredible blockbuster hit, Sound of Freedom. Hey everyone, my name's Christian Verstappen, and I have a lot to say about many things. I want to talk about Sound of Freedom. Now, before we begin, I want to explain that as a movie in and of itself, this could be perfectly fine. It could be perfectly fine script, acting, etc. But I'm more concerned about the reaction to it, the marketing, and what has people in such an uproar over it. See, there's an important part here that says, based on the incredible true story. First of all, what does that actually mean? Based on a true story means the movie is based on actual events that happened. But the movie is also going to be a little exaggerated, but for the most part, is true. Inspired by a true story is where the filmmaker was inspired by a true story, and the inspiration, led them to make this movie. Now, I would argue, first of all, that this movie would be much better marketed and labeled as inspired by a true story. Because, as we're going to get into here, a lot of the events, the specifics, not just things being embellished for enjoyment of the viewer, but key things that are actually pretty important were more than embellished for the sake of artistic creativity. So, I want to open with a clip from a Let's Play that I quite enjoy. I'll provide context in a second here. But pay attention to what these people playing the game say.
We're keeping a good eye out lately. We've had problems with the child molester.
Eli Rooney.
Why is everybody a fucking kitty diddler in this game?
Son of a bitch.
It's like, remember how I said before that pedophiles are like the hate for of drawstrings?
Yeah, I know.
No
but
fastest way to get the player against somebody than calling me kid diddler.
I know, but it's like you draw.
It's true.
It's like you're reaching to the hat of ideas, and like 80% of the slips are pedophiles.
Yeah.
Guess what, guys?
No, it's all pedophiles, but it's just different names for pedophiles. Okay, this one's a pedophile. This one's a kid diddler. This one likes underage kids. Like, they're
This
all
one
the same
fucks young
thing.
boys, Valdez.
It says Valdez specifically this slip. It's like, oh.
Okay, so that was a clip from the Super Gaming Bros Let's Play, their redo, actually, of LA Noire. Great game, by the way. Great Let's Play. Highly recommend watching it if you're into that kind of thing. But there was an important thing that one of the commentators brought up there. Making a character a P3DO is low-hanging fruit. It's the easiest way to get the player in a video game to hate that character. It's also the easiest way to get people to hate a character in a movie, a TV show, a book, a comic, or a political candidate in real life. So, a very common tactic that especially the right has been implementing for a long time, but people in general, is to call people that they don't like P3DOs. Now, there are many reasons for this. The main one is that it calls to our basic instinct as human beings to protect children. As well, it's very easy to demonize and vilify those that are P3DOs. Now, we'll get into this later, but I believe that this should be treated like a mental illness like anything else, and that these people need help, not to be vilified and treated like they're horrible monsters. Should they be around children? Absolutely not. But should they be killed just for having a mental condition? No. Again, they need help. But again, we'll get to those specifics later. I wanted to open with that clip because, for one, I thought it was funny, but for another, that line really stuck with me, and I've been thinking about it ever since, especially with all that's happening because of this movie. So, Screen Rant did a really good article on this. How accurate is Sound of Freedom? Now, I want to go through this because I think that they really, really broke it down very well here. So, First of all, there are going to be spoilers and, of course, content warning for anyone that wouldn't think there was going to be content warning for this kind of thing. We're going to be covering spoilers because, of course, we are. So, while Sound of Freedom has earned millions at the box office, the controversial Tim Ballard biopic has also been accused of manipulating the reality of child trafficking. Sound of Freedom stars Jim Caviezel as Tim Ballard, the founder and CEO of Operation Underground Railroad. We'll get into that later too. In his work with Operation Underground Railroad, Ballard has claimed credit for rescuing thousands of child trafficking victims. The story, Sound of Freedom, sees Ballard travel to Colombia to rescue a child from sex traffickers and reunite them with their family. The movie became a major box office success upon release, earning $40 million at the box office despite mixed reviews. While Sound of Freedom's box office haul is undeniably impressive, the movie's message has many real-life anti-trafficking experts wary. Activists with decades of experience fighting child trafficking have warned that Sound of Freedom depiction of the criminal industry is misleading and could lead to widespread misinformation. Operation Underground Railroad and Ballard himself have both come under fire in recent years for the organization's lack of financial transparency and Ballard's alleged embellishment of his role in survivors' stories. Vice published 2 critical investigations into Ballard and Operation Underground Railroad before Sound of Freedom's release, and the movie's success is now leading experts to warn against fear-mongering. Here's what the experts think about Sound of Freedom's story. All sides agree child trafficking is a large-scale problem. So I'm really glad that they talk about that pretty close in the beginning here, because as I opened with, yes, I am against child trafficking. Everybody is against child trafficking. Nobody is supporting that. That's not the issue. None of us, no people that have any issue with this movie or the people that made the movie have an issue with what was done in the movie. What was done in the movie, what it depicts, all that stuff, that's great. That's wonderful. But the issue is the fear-mongering aspect. Oh, this is real, and, the trafficking is real. But specifically, we'll get into it here. One thing that I want to credit it for right off the bat, and I did like this from the beginning, is that they weren't pushing this narrative, from what I could tell from the trailers at least, that it is white suburban children that are being captured and taken advantage of in this way. It's primarily brown people. Could be Hispanic, could be Asian, but it's normally people that are of low socioeconomic class and value. We'll get to that in a little bit here, though. So, we all agree it's a large-scale problem and it needs addressing. While even creators of the movie admit that Sound of Freedom's story changed Ballard's real life, the movie still paints a... I'm not sure how to pronounce this word. Okay. We're going to say hagiographical... No. You know what? We have all these tab. Yeah, okay. Hagiographical picture of the activist. This is arguably understandable as Ballard claims to fight child trafficking, and this issue is both a very real phenomenon and a serious problem. The U.S. State Department estimates that over 600,000 humans are trafficked every year, and approximately half of those victims are minors. Well, if they're children, then yes, they would be minors, but okay. However, the fact that... 600,000 humans and half are minors. Gotcha, okay. However, the fact that child trafficking is a major, extremely serious criminal threat makes Sound of Freedom's inaccurate depiction of the problem all the more worrying, according to experts. In an article for Rolling Stone, experts such as... which we'll get to. We'll get to these articles later too, by the way. Experts such as attorney Aaron Albright and CEO of the National Children's Alliance, Teresa Huizar, raised concerns about the way that Sound of Freedom depicts child trafficking and the impression this depiction could give viewers. Both Huizar and Albright have spent decades working with victims of child trafficking, and both experts agree that Sound of Freedom's glamorized depiction of their work distracts from its harsh reality. Huizar notes that this is particularly pernicious when it comes to Sound of Freedom depicting its child traffickers as shady strangers when in reality, most child victims already know their traffickers. So that's the first thing. Most child victims know their traffickers. Part of why Sound of Freedom is controversial is the movie's decision to depict its child traffickers as characters who steal children through an elaborate scam involving imaginary beauty pageants. In reality, most child victims are trafficked by people they know and trust. Sound of Freedom's opening sequence features a montage of children being kidnapped in public in broad daylight, an image that is undeniably chilling. According to Huizar and Albright, the reality is a lot sadder. Most younger child victims are trafficked by parents with substance abuse problems, trying to buy drugs, while most child victims are much older than the ones seen in Sound of Freedom. The first important thing about this, the issue with this film is not that child trafficking is happening. That's not what's fake. That is, unfortunately, a very sad reality. But the issue is who is doing it. The most common places for children to be abused, either in this way or others, are the home, the church, and school. Those are the three most. Why? Because when you tell a child, hey, you have to listen to this adult no matter what they say, that obviously sets up a very potentially dangerous power imbalance. Now, I don't believe that power imbalances are necessarily inherently bad in any case. Of course, if you're a parent to a child, of course there's going to be a power imbalance. Of course, you're going to have that in any situation, and you have to be able to trust other adults to, take care of your kids, teach them, and different things like that. And we'll get into all of that a little bit later here too. But this idea that children are being taken by these shady groups of people and all this stuff, just isn't true. The way that kids get trafficked, oftentimes their parents put them up for it. And another thing about that is they only briefly mentioned beauty pageants. But guys, I don't know if you've ever seen a beauty pageant. They're fucking gross. They're parading around children as if they're adults, some of them even having swimsuit contests. Are you kidding me? Are you actually kidding me? You want to do that as an adult? Fine, that's great. But a child being put up to that by their parent? No, absolutely not. But you won't get the people that are loving this movie calling out stuff like that. You'll actually have them supporting it. But we'll get to that later too. Most child trafficking victims are teenagers. Almost all the child victims seen in Sound of Freedom are prepubescent children. In reality, the majority of child victims of trafficking are teenagers who have been kicked out of their homes, often because they are LGBTQ+ or gender non-conforming. According to Huizar, they are kicked out of their homes and trade sex for food and a place to stay, and end up being trafficked by a pimp. That's the other thing. The most common ways that they get into this is either through their parents putting them up to it, or because they have no other options. And often, they are LGBTQ. They have a pimp, they have all these different things. According to a counter-trafficking data collaborative report, almost 70% of child trafficking victims are aged between 15 and 17. As such, Sound of Freedom's depiction of younger victims could mislead viewers when, in reality, older teenagers are more at risk. Many child trafficking victims are LGBTQ+. While Sound of Freedom's critical success matches the movie's box office haul, the hit fails to touch on one of the most important issues facing child trafficking activists today. Many child victims of human trafficking are LGBTQ+, or gender nonconforming, and as legislation targeting these vulnerable minorities becomes more commonplace, an increasing number of children are in danger of becoming victims. According to Jean Bergerman, Freedom Network USA's executive director, the depiction of a stranger stealing a child into slavery is less accurate than poverty, homophobia, transphobia, and domestic abuse pushing children into unsafe relationships with traffickers. Many of these traffickers initially convince victims they're their boyfriends or girlfriends. We've seen this before. I've talked about this before, but you guys remember Andrew Tate and his lover boy method? That is sex trafficking. That is what this shit looks like. Because when you're a disaffected child who's been kicked out by your parents, who's been disowned, and all these different things, and you have no upward social mobility, someone comes to you and they say, oh, man, you're really in a tough spot. Well, hey, let me help you out there. Oh wow, you have nobody there for you. That's so sad. Let me be there for you. Let me help you out. You just have to do a few things for me. Per Bergerman, young people end up in trafficking situations because their family is in incredible poverty, because of political unrest, because the child is being rejected by their family for their sexual orientation or gender identity. This sobering reality flies in the face of Sound of Freedom's more dramatic story. Since Sound of Freedom's cast of characters is mostly Ballard and his associates, the movie doesn't spend much time with the victims of trafficking. As such, Huazar notes that Sound of Freedom could discourage child victims from recognizing that they are being trafficked by depicting a rare, unusual form of trafficking and implying that it is the norm. That is one of the ways that this hurts people. Because you have these extreme situations. And this is true for all sorts of abuse. You have people hear about and see these extreme situations. And then when, we'll say lighter examples, less noticeable examples that throw up red flags but aren't as bad as this, when those happen to people, they see that and they think, oh, well, no, that can't be happening to me because this is what that looks like. That's not what's happening to me. My parents love me. They just need me to do this to make some extra money. This person loves me. They just need me to, they've given me a job. I should be grateful for them. And grateful for this opportunity. Sound of Freedom sensationalizes saving children from trafficking. The problem that many experts have with Sound of Freedom is that the movie's dramatic story detracts from real-life attempts to draw attention to the pressing problem of child trafficking. While Sound of Freedom doesn't depict the QAnon movement's dramatic conspiracy theories about harvesting human blood that Caviezel has repeatedly promoted, we'll get to that, the movie does leave out a lot of the most upsetting realities at the heart of the child trafficking industry. Child trafficking is tragically commonplace and could be fought with policies like, according to Huazar, government-funded substance abuse treatment programs. Sound of Freedom doesn't promote these policies, instead encouraging viewers to donate to Operation Underground Railroad. I wonder why. After Sound of Freedom's release date delays, the movie has proven an unexpected hit. However, according to experts like Huazar, Albright, and Bergerman, the Sound of Freedom's depiction of child trafficking doesn't do enough to draw attention to the root cause of the problem and its victims. Per experts, child trafficking is commonplace because of a lack of treatment plans for people with drug abuse issues, a lack of social safety nets for families in poverty, and a lack of support for LGBTQ+ and gender non-conforming youth. I always want to say non-gender conforming, but gender non-conforming, it's the same thing. As long as these problems remain unsolved, experts posit that Sound of Freedom's sensationalized depiction of child trafficking will remain unhelpful and misleading. I've talked before about how I grew up relatively conservative and pretty religious. I grew up in an area of Florida that's pretty progressive, but also has some elements that aren't so progressive, and some people that fit that same demographic, if you will. My best friends are people from my church that I made growing up. And one of my friends had put the trailer for this in our group chat, which got us all talking about this. At the time of this recording, we still haven't actually spoken because me pointing out the realities of this film and everything surrounding it kind of caused a bit of a schism. Now, I do want to be clear about this as well. I don't have an issue with people like you guys watching this, voter bases, whatever, that vote or think differently than me. I do say and do believe that the right political party, the politicians and all that, are evil, unequivocally. But the people, like people that you may know in your day-to-day life, people that I know in my day-to-day life, for the most part, are just misled, misinformed, etc. And I get that. Part of that comes from that religious aspect that I mentioned. Specifically, a Christian persecution complex. So, Christian persecution complex is the belief, attitude, or worldview that Christian values and Christians are being oppressed by social groups and governments. Now, there are many reasons as to why these complexes exist. One of the big ones is that it's kind of the best way to believe that you're actually a good Christian. The religion of Christianity really purports this idea that the world is against you, the world is in sin, all these different things, and that you are going to be shunned, you are meant to take up your cross and go through persecution just like Jesus did. And these people legitimately think, and I get it, because I used to be this way to an extent too, they legitimately believe that persecution is things like the existence of gay people. They think they're being persecuted when they see rainbow flags at Target. That's not persecution. That's acceptance. How do you think they feel when they see crosses in churches everywhere they go? When they're told and have it implied in one way or another that they're going to burn in hell simply for loving the wrong person or not conforming to the rigid gender roles that many of us do. And look, I am a cis het white male. I have a ton of privilege in those circumstances. I get it. And I also understand how it feels to feel like you're being persecuted. You're not. I'm not. My friends aren't. My family aren't. If you are a religious person, you aren't. And I take no issue with you being religious. Everybody's got to find their own way in life to make things work. But I do have an issue if you use that religion to justify hatred and bigotry. There's a band called Skillet. They are one of the most popular Christian rock bands. And I've talked before about how I unironically listen to, and still do to an extent, listen to some Christian rock artists, Skillet being one of them. I still like their message of hope and all that stuff. And, you know, even you can kind of ignore or not ignore, whatever you want to do with the religious undertones. But it's not super in your face all the time, at least not if we're talking about songs like, say, Monster or Hero or some of their breakout songs like that. But when we look at these people's views politically and socially, that's where I really take issue. So this is a post by John Cooper, the singer of Skillet. This was a post on Instagram. Perverts, liars, power. What does that mean? Let's get into it. In the same week that media outlets such as Rolling Stone and The Guardian downplayed child sex trafficking, calling it QAnon conspiracies, first of all, no, that is not what they were calling conspiracy theories. They were explaining that the way in which the trafficking occurs is not the way that's depicted in the movies, in the movie. And the way that QAnon has specific conspiracy theories about the trafficking, but the fact that trafficking happens in general is not the conspiracy theory. It happens. It's horrible. But the QAnon the best lies have a little bit of truth. And they, as in QAnon, are very good at this. And pundits on MSM, such as MSNBC, it's like one of the only news outlets I actually like, by the way, claimed that messages found in Sound of Freedom try to exaggerate human trafficking to create fear. Democrats in California blocked a bill that would make child trafficking a felony the very same week. These people are liars. Thankfully, due to public outrage, they reversed course and passed the measure today. There are people in position, you know what? We'll get to that later. There are people in positions of power and influence in the media, politics, Hollywood, and academic institutions, etc., who are in fact coming after your kids. They are coming for your kids. The elites, Hollywood, media, politics, academic institutions, they are coming for your kids. Jews are coming for your kids. Whether John knows it or not, he is undoubtedly pushing Nazi rhetoric. They love evil. They love perversion. They are relying on our fear of being labeled QAnon conspiracy theorists, right-wing extremists, divisive, and any other pejorative they can think of to get us to be silent. They are also relying on the astonishingly impotent voice of the church, who is more concerned with being winsome, than fighting evil. The sermonizing of the evangelical tone police is getting old, especially when they remain silent in the face of wickedness. Making peace with evil is an evil peace. Evil men do not understand justice, but those who seek the Lord understand it completely. Proverbs 28:5. 19,739 likes, by the way. Oh yeah. Really being silenced. Skillet, a major, I believe they're platinum selling artist who has achieved even mainstream success. Yes, really being silenced. But, oh, I got rid of it, didn't I? Yep, persecution complex. That's what it's all about. You guys remember that meme here? We're gonna, so real quick here. You guys remember this? We're dropping your column. Many readers think you're just too extreme. I've been silenced. So he goes on a podium. I have been silenced. He's in the news, on a newspaper. I've been silenced. In the media, here with his new book, I Have Been Silenced. And he's screaming still, I have been silenced on Fox News. I'm going to pin that as well. It's funny how these people will always do this thing where they'll act like they're being silenced, or there's some conspiracy and, oh, they don't want you to hear what you have to say, or they don't want you to hear the message of this movie, this book, this whatever the case. And look, does that happen to an extent? Absolutely. The Catcher in the Rye was a thing, and we're seeing, even in my state, for example, books actually being banned in libraries. Like, that is what being silenced and censorship and all that, that's what this stuff actually looks like. Not people giving negative reviews and pointing out historical inconsistencies and falsehoods in a movie. Now, I actually haven't looked this up yet, but I'm curious. California bill that would make child sex trafficking a felony. Let's see what this is about. Okay. All right. Let's go through this whole thing together. Pick a side. Lodi Rep. Flora says bill that would make child trafficking a felony is a simple choice. Sacramento. Last week, Assemblyman Heath Flora R. Rippin called out his Democratic colleagues when they opted not to support a bill that would make child sex trafficking a felony. Now, this is important because, as you saw in that post, and the rhetoric that people are running with here is, oh, Republicans wanted to push a bill that was going to stop or felonize, make child sex trafficking a felony, and Democrats blocked it. In a heated exchange last Thursday, Flora told lawmakers to take sides by stating, pick P3DOs or children. The Democratic majority leader in the assembly then accused Flora of disparaging his colleagues for suggesting lawmakers supported human trafficking. On Monday, Flora said he made the pick a side comment because supporting the bill shouldn't be that difficult to consider. I'm very passionate about protecting kids, he said. My Democratic colleagues are very protective of kids as well, but a few of them held the bill's passage up. Authored by Senator Shannon Grove, Republican Bakersfield, SB 14 would make child sex trafficking crimes in California a serious felony and add them to the list of crimes eligible for sentencing enhancements under the state's three strikes law. Here's the important part. That would mean that repeat child sex traffickers or even child sex traffickers with other serious felony convictions could possibly receive longer prison terms, including life sentences. Now, that all sounds good, right? Okay, well, give them longer sentences. If they're repeat offenders, absolutely. The Senate passed the bill by a 40-0 vote in May. But last Tuesday, it was rejected by the Assembly's Public Safety Committee, with the only two Republicans on the panel voting in favor of the bill, while all 6 Democrats abstained. Abstemiousness. It was really shocking to a lot of us, Flora said, after coming out of the Senate by a 40-0 vote and then coming to the Assembly and dying for reasons that just really weren't well thought out. Made absolutely no sense. Some Democratic committee members have argued that the state's past criminal justice policies like three strikes law have led to a disproportionate amount of minorities being incarcerated. Committee leader Reggie Jones Sawyer, Democrat of Los Angeles, issued a statement after the decision and said SB 14 did not create new corrective actions or offer enhancements to laws already in place. That's part of why it was shut down. So, technically, yes, Democrats did shut down the bill in California that was going to make child sex trafficking a felony. But there's more to it than just that. The three strikes model of sentencing is ineffective in preventing crime and protecting the public's safety. He said, "We will not build on a deeply flawed sentencing system that unfairly punishes disadvantaged communities." After Tuesday's decision, Brian tweeted out, that human trafficking victims were vulnerable to being criminalized. This is the important part right here. The people most vulnerable to being charged with trafficking are the victims of trafficking themselves, he said. Charges are used to leverage their cooperation in prosecution, and their survivor status is erased, with many currently incarcerated in both youth and adult prisons. See, what happens with these kind of things is that when you have something like this, and to be clear, obviously, yes, this is a crime, yes, it's horrible. But the people who are committing the crimes are often the victims. They're the ones that are caught. They're the ones that are taken to jail. Yeah, the traffickers can be caught. But this type of thing hurts victims and potential survivors more than it does the traffickers. Which is why, by the way, one of the true answers to this is to make sex work, or to decriminalize sex work and prostitution. Not for kids. That should always be a crime. But part of the reason that it works in this seedy underbelly crime world kind of way is because of the puritanical views that we have about sex and sex work. It makes it very easy for people to take advantage of others in these kind of ways. And if you don't understand how important it is that making something legal makes it more ethical in different ways, look at Prohibition and what a failure that was. Why do you think there were so many speakeasies and stuff that opened up, and selling alcohol was such a common criminal activity, and it led to a bunch of, well, crime, that people were selling alcohol? People wanted to drink, they wanted to get it some way, they got it unethically. Of course, when it comes to children, they should always be left out of it. But consenting adults that want to be a sex worker are perfectly fine, and they have my full support. Now, Flores said the idea the bill would incarcerate more minorities or even trafficking victims was absurd. We don't want that. We don't want to, I think he means we don't want to do that. But if you're a P3DO and you're trafficking kids, it doesn't matter if you're white, brown, or black. You're going to jail, and you're going to jail for a very long time. Okay, I agree with that. After failing in the committee last Tuesday, Flores said he spoke to Assembly Speaker Robert Riva, Democrat of Salinas, to persuade colleagues to take up the bill's cause. Rivas was able to get the bill to the Assembly floor, where a Democratic majority voted 43-17 to send it back to the Public Safety Committee. It passed 6-0 on Thursday, with Bryan and Assemblywoman Mia Bonte, Democrat of Oakland, abstaining. Of course they did. Flora and said the 3 days of heated exchange was frustrating, but was glad to see some of his Democrat colleagues change their mind. We have had other public safety bills come to the floor the last few times in the last few months, whether it's fentanyl or this bill, where we've forced Democrats to do the right thing, he said. I'm encouraged by it. Yeah. So, of course, the narrative that's being pushed here is that, oh, they wanted to pass this bill that was going to really crack down on criminals that did this deplorable thing that everybody knows is a no-brainer and everybody's against. But the reason that they wanted to block the bill, they wanted to send it back and have it re-examined, rewritten possibly, is because it was going to, and will, now that it's put in place, negatively affect victims. Because do you know what happens when victims are in these kind of situations, when the thing that they're doing is a crime? Who the hell are they going to go to? Who? Can they go to the police? Now, whether they're a child or an adult, an actual victim of sex trafficking goes to somebody, say the police, and says, hey, I'm doing this thing. This person is making me do this thing. Well, they're going to hear, okay, you're both criminals, if they can get them both. If they can only get the victim, then they'll just get the victim. Like, what do you think is going to happen with this stuff? This happens with drug dealers. This happens with everything, which is also why drugs need to be decriminalized as well. When you have these things take place in ways when they are so vilified publicly, and there's such negative public reception to even the concept of these things, they are encouraged and work best in the dark. And the worst people are going to take these things and take advantage of them and take advantage of people. When things are brought more into the light, they get better. I've talked about sex workers before in regards to adult performers. Everybody knows that 10, 20 years ago, and even before, the industry was really, really bad. But as it's gained more social acceptance and it's been more regulated and all these different things, it's gotten a lot better. It's not perfect by any means, but it's gotten a lot better. The same thing could happen with people who do drugs and people who want to do sex work. Not are forced into it, but want to. Now, in terms of drugs, you want to offer ways to help people get over their addictions and get help without being criminalized for it. Because again, if you're criminalized for the problem that you're having, you are not going to go to the people who can help you with that problem because they're going to lock you up. It disincentivizes people getting well. And this disincentivizes people speaking up when they are being abused. That is why the Democrats blocked it. But it's very, very easy to run with the story that Democrats blocked the bill. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, okay. Now, there was a similar thing of beginning January 1st, prostitution by minors will be legal in California. No. Actually, I'm going to talk about that one. Now let's get back to that persecution complex. This is the end of a Rolling Stone article, which is very good. I recommend looking at this. It is called Sound of Freedom is a superhero movie for dads with brain worms. What a way to phrase it. Therefore, to its boosters, the movie checks many satisfying boxes at once. Caviezel, a devout Catholic allegedly blacklisted by the entertainment industry, back for a mythology-burnishing biopic of Ballard, a call to action in an imagined global war against sexual predators, a blow struck at the heart of woke Hollywood, the den of iniquity that snubbed it, and, lest we forget, is thought to produce the wealthy deviants who serve as villains in this story. This movie is... it's not even virtue signaling. It's just... people are going to see this movie a lot to feel better about themselves. It's what happens. We'll do it with different things. But look, if you see this and you think, oh God, yeah, that's so terrible, congratulations. Most of society agrees with you. But again, addressing the actual issues is not the way that this movie goes about it. So let's take a look at Tim Billard's other thoughts and why he might be blacklisted by Hollywood. It might have to do with takes like this.
Just yesterday, 2 of the guys were convicted in Ecuador because it led us to Ecuador, a child sex hotel. These pedophiles from Holland and set up. But we'll get into that another time, okay? But the point I'm making is, I had to study their literature. This was a political platform. This was a political party. And what I started recognizing is I named them I call it the pedophile network doctrines. Okay, yeah. It's like they include things like separate children from parents because parents are a bad influence. The state knows best. Sexualize kids. Let them.
No, it is not. I'm gonna have to break down each thing here. It does not separate children from their parents because parents are bad and the state knows best. It is the reality that parents often are abusers of their own children. Not always, not all. When I say often, I don't mean parents in general are often abusers. What I mean is, well, the way I should phrase that is, children that are abused are often abused by their parents. And about sexualizing kids, it's not sexualizing kids, it's teaching them about their body. It's helping kids to understand, hey, if an adult or even another kid wants to touch you in one of these areas or ask to see one of these areas or anything like that, or wants you to touch them there, don't do that. We had this thing where I was in elementary school and we learned about this. We had this little song jingle. It was "Don't touch me there. That is my no-no square." It was kind of a joke, as we grew up, we kind of made fun of it. But I mean, yeah, teach them about the no-no square. No-no square for you, no-no square for. That's what this shit looks like. When people talk about, you're sexualizing kids, you're teaching kids about. No. You want kids, if you actually care about children, you actually want them to be able to be protected, you want them to know there are certain things that I shouldn't do with adults, and certain things they shouldn't do with me, or certain things I shouldn't even do with other kids. No square. Easy for kids to understand. It works. Of course, there's other ways you can go about it too, but yeah. You want these kids to know, because someone that doesn't know is easily taken advantage of, and that is what many of these people want.
See pornography.
No, it's not seeing adult entertainment. It is. Oh my God. It's the same thing. It's teaching them about their body.
3, take God out of education because that just gets in the way. And kids, consent. Children can consent to anything. At 12 years old, they should be able to vote. They should be able to do anything.
No, not at all. What? No. Look, there are people on my side, if you will, on the left, who advocate for things even like increasing the age of consent to 21 or 25. Now, personally, I think 18 is perfect because, simply put, if you're old enough to vote and die for your country, you're old enough to decide who you want to have sex with. I think that's fine. But that's not even what when we talk about consent, no one is saying kids can consent. We are saying the opposite. Kids cannot consent. That's the whole point. What are you talking about?
Now, what am I saying here? My stomach is getting sick as I'm reading this. I read this every day. Uh-huh. It's the woke left agenda.
The woke left, just say Jews. Just say it's the Jews. Just say it. I know you want to. Just say it's the Jews.
I'm not saying that they're colluding or talking. It doesn't matter. It's the same dark source. But
the same dark source. Just.
They are pedophiles are sitting back right now going, we've been pushing this agenda for decades. And now we don't have to push anymore because the left is taking care of it for us in America. In America. And this whole trans voice on children. Again, I'm libertarian.
Wait, what was that?
In America, and this whole trans voice on children.
What, like forcing kids to be trans? No, trans kids are forced to be in the closet. It has never been that people are being turned gay or turned trans. It's that people that are LGBTQ+ are forced to stay in the closet for a myriad of different reasons, and they shouldn't have to.
Again, I'm libertarian. Adults, do what you want. I'll fight for your right
Sure.
to do whatever you want. Okay, in terms of adult, I'm talking about children. And what they're saying is children can consent to having their bodies filled with a chemical that will destroy the reproductive system.
Oh, okay. So he's talking about, I see. All right. So what he's fear-mongering about here, when he says children consent, he's talking about medical consent. He's talking about, well, a lot of these people like to push it as if it's this surgical procedure. Kids are getting surgery done. They're getting their. How far are we in the video? I can talk like this now. They're getting their dicks and tits chopped off when they're kids. All these different things. They're getting their genitals mutilated. Blah, blah, blah. No, they aren't. The filled with chemicals that they're getting in this case are hormone blockers. Hormone blockers have been used for people since the 80s, at least. And they've been used for kids. And you know the great thing about hormone blockers? Say a kid thinks, say they're assigned male at birth. No, okay, sure, we'll go with that one, because that's the one they all freak out about. Say they're assigned male at birth, and they think, I really identify with femininity. I really identify with being a girl. I think I'm a girl. And let's say, in a perfect world, that the parents are completely supportive of this. They say, okay, go ahead. Say their name's Jimmy. We'll call you Jimmy. You want to be called Sally now? Okay, that's fine. We'll call you, whatever. We'll support the whole thing. They're on hormone blockers. They're on hormone blockers for a couple of years. Here's what happens. Maybe they start through puberty. Maybe they quit. And of course, they're not gaining muscle. They're not doing any of they're not really getting testosterone, all the different things that a man would typically get, right, as a boy as they mature into adolescence. But then something happens. They decide, I think I really do want to be a boy, actually. I say, okay, that's your choice. We'll support you, all these different things. Of course, it's more than just this. There are steps they go through and all these different things, but I'm breaking it down here. So they get off of the hormone therapy, the hormone blockers. And you know what happens? Puberty hits them like a truck. That's what happens. It just all at once hits them. Because what puberty blockers do, notice they're called puberty blockers, not puberty diminishers, suppressors, anything like that. They don't lower your testosterone. They don't do any of that stuff. Or if you're assigned female at birth, they don't lower estrogen or anything. They just prevent you from getting all of the things like body hair, voice drop, I don't know, insane horniness, but I don't know. I still love that one, so that's not really something you grow out of. They don't develop these things because it's being blocked. But you take that block out of the way, and it just rushes, and it just hits them all at once. A lot of the arguments that people make against trans people, like trans people in sports and stuff like that, are actually arguments for, even if they don't realize it or will say it or acknowledge it, they're arguments for puberty blockers, because that is how you prevent these things from happening.
They can consent to ripping apart their genitalia. Like, this is insanity.
Yeah, exactly. So, as always, of course, we have this, excuse me, they're coming for your children, the global elites, just say Jews. It's all Nazi rhetoric. That's all it is. Now, Forbes did an article on one of the other major conspiracy theories that Tim Ballard promotes. The adrenochrome conspiracy theory pushed by Sound of Freedom Star explained. Now, I'm not going to go through this entire thing. You're welcome to read through it if you'd like. But essentially what it goes through is Well, the adrenochrome conspiracy. And essentially what this was, as this article explains, is basically a conspiracy in which children were being harvested by people like Hillary Clinton, George Soros, Bill Gates, basically anyone that conservatives, wanted to put a target on at the time. Especially throughout 2016 through even 2020. This is where we saw things like Pizzagate and all these different things. And Pizzagate was another insane conspiracy theory in which children were being held in pizza parlors and things like that, where this thing was happening. A lot of this ultimately comes back to the idea that the global elites were taking and harvesting children's energy to make them younger. So if that sounds like some supervillain kind of thing, well, it is. But more importantly, it's Nazi propaganda. Blood libel. The term blood libel refers to the false allegation that Jews used the blood of non-Jewish, usually Christian children, for the ritual purposes. The Nazis made effective use of the blood libel to demonize Jews, with Julius Steicher's newspaper Der Stürmer making frequent use of ritual murder imagery in its anti-Semitic propaganda. I talked before about how P3DOs are low-hanging fruit. Why is this? Everybody wants to protect children. Everybody. And we tend to detest people that would cause harm to children, whether they be our own or others. And that's fine, that makes sense. And in regards to the Christian persecution complex, there's a line, it was on that guy's shirt too, but there's a line that is commonly used in which they say, God's children are not for sale. The idea is the global elites are taking white Christian children, or in this case, people in Honduras and Colombia and what have you. Little kids too, not teenagers like in reality, but little kids, they're just being swooped up in broad daylight. This is an epidemic that's happening. And you need to do something about it. It plays to so many different things. Look, I have a hero complex. I get it. I want to help everybody. It's kind of why I do what I do. But it plays to the desire to be a hero. It plays to the conspiracy theories. It plays to persecution complexes. It plays to our natural desire to want to protect our young. It plays to so many different things. And this conspiracy shit is the marketing campaign. Make no mistake about it. Whether it's intentional or not, I don't know. That's a conspiracy in and of itself. And I'm kind of anti-conspiracy brain because it often leads to this kind of shit. But even if they didn't intend it to be this way, it is incredible marketing, incredible publicity. But yeah, global elites are harvesting your children and taking their energy, their blood, their whatever, their adrenochrome, blood libel. Nazi propaganda. And I know some people get annoyed when they hear this stuff and everything's Nazi, everything. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of it is. And it can lead to really tragic stuff like this. People who fall for the conspiracies of QAnon. QAnon follower Matthew Coleman, who allegedly killed his kids, was deceived, report. Again, we're not going to get into the specifics here, but this man killed his wife and kids with a harpoon gun, of all things. Why? Because he got really into QAnon conspiracy theories, and he believed that these people were actually lizard people. Again, you're welcome to read the article. You're welcome to look into this. It's not specifically what this is about, but this is where some conspiracy, a lot of this conspiracy stuff leads. Look, are there messed up things in the world? Yes. Are there problems and things that we need to resolve? Yes. Are there issues and certain people in power that do horrible things? Yes. But it's not the global elites. It's the corporations that treat their workers poorly. It's people who are entirely against unions. Which, by the way, you can thank unions for everything from paid sick time off to the weekend, not the artist, the concept of the weekend, having Friday and Saturday off, Saturday and Sunday off, or 2 days off in general in the week, even if it's not 2 days in a row. Those are the people that are causing the problems. The big corporations that only care about the bottom line. But not this global conspiracy where, oh, there's all this shadow puppet government. No, none of that. And when people focus on these conspiracies, they look away from the real issues. And some can even be driven to insanity and murder like this man was for his kids. By the way, I love how accurate it is to this meme. The media when a black man shoplifts bread to feed his daughter versus when a white man murders his family and dissolves him in acid. 2 people suspected of stealing 90 cans. Look at that. Mugshots. And then St. Charles man killed daughters before telling wife to live and suffer. There's the man. He's the murderer. Murderer, shoplifters. Jesus. Yeah. They legit did the same thing here. I mean, look at this. This is the front page. Yeah. That's a whole nother thing. Now, Operation Railroad was under investigation in 2020. Now, you'll notice Fox, of all people, covered this. What's interesting about this, though, is now they won't say a bad word about Underground Railroad, Operation Underground Railroad. Not the Underground Railroad, but we'll talk about that later too. Let's get into this video.
Tonight, Fox.
Actually, that's not really. Okay, yeah. Can I speed this up at all? Ooh, I can. Sweet. Can we get captions? We can't. Okay, we're not going to speed it up because we can't get captions.
Fox 13 News has confirmed there is a criminal investigation into the Utah-based nonprofit Operation Underground Railroad.
The organization works to rescue human trafficking victims around the world, including here in Utah. Fox 13 News investigative reporter Adam Herbetz joins us now with what we know so far. Adam.
Yeah, Bob Kelly, because this is an ongoing criminal investigation, both sides are very limited in what they are saying. But Fox 13 News has learned that prosecutors are looking into several allegations.
This is 2 years ago.
This is video from a 2014 human trafficking sting in Colombia. Members of Operation Underground Railroad working with local law enforcement.
By the way, notice even with this footage, kids don't look very little, do they? No, it looks like they might be adolescents.
There were about 54 girls ranging in age from 10 to 16, and they were expecting to have sex.
He even says, ranging from age 10 to 16. Yeah, if you don't believe me and all these other news outlets, listen to Fox 2 years ago when 2015, when they weren't supporting this movie because it wasn't pushing their conservative agenda. Funny how that works.
with all these Americans.
They're selling these kids to you like they're selling a car or a computer. At our party, they brought 5 11-year-olds, including one little boy, 11 years old, who were being offered as virgins, and you pay a premium for that. That's $1,000.
Many of those who work with Operation Underground Railroad, including its founder, Tim Ballard, and Utah Attorney General Sean Reyes, have experience in law enforcement. They say the issue of human trafficking has no borders.
We do these presentations a lot, and people are like, you're kidding me. That can't exist here in our state.
For years, Fox 13 has reported on law enforcement efforts to stop human trafficking in Utah and abroad.
Those are real heroes, frontline first responders, firefighters, law enforcement.
Now, Fox 13 News has learned the Davis County Attorney's Office has opened a criminal investigation into Operation Underground Railroad. According to Davis County Attorney Troy Rawlings, quote, "We've received complaints and are in the process of reviewing those complaints. Because of the ongoing investigation, our request for records was denied."
Just one quick thing. You talked about.
I think I'm good.
Attorney General Sean Reyes serves on Operation Underground Railroad's advisory board and even went undercover with that sting in Colombia.
We actually had no idea he was the Attorney General. He just acted humble like everyone else.
On Tuesday, he talked about the great work being done by OUR while receiving an award from Daughters of the American Revolution.
He has proven to the people of the state of Utah that he is a man of integrity and ability.
After the event, Reyes declined to answer questions about the nonprofit. The Davis County Attorney's Office is also saying little about its case, but Fox 13 has learned County Attorney Troy Rawlings posted a series of messages on his personal Instagram account last month. Quote, "Please beware of any individual, entity, or organization who solicits your money and may be claiming credit for work to protect children that is actually done by our task force. They have had absolutely zero involvement in any of these arrests and successful prosecutions you see on display on the wall of shame in the Davis County Attorney's Office."
So that's part of it too. The money that people are donating to Operation Underground Railroad isn't actually being used to fight these horrible crimes. I'm not saying they're necessarily pocketing it all. I don't know. But what I do know is from what people who actually do this are saying, those guys aren't really doing shit. Listen, I love superheroes and all that stuff in fiction, but it's fiction. Going out and being a vigilante like this in real life often doesn't work.
The messages did not name Operation Underground Railroad directly. According to public records, the nonprofit's revenue has more than tripled over a span of 4 years.
Let's do it, man. We're going to answer the controversial questions right now. Oh, there's some big ones.
OUR posted this video online last week, which did not address the investigation.
The sooner we answer these questions, the sooner we can all join together.
Earlier today, we received this brief response from Operation Underground Railroad's legal counsel, Adam Becker, who says he spoke with the Davis County attorney today, who told him there is no...
I will say that's a good logo. That's pretty good, pretty creative. I like that.
No investigation. We also reached out to the Attorney General, Sean Reyes. His office says they aren't aware of any investigation, and he wouldn't comment, even if he was aware of one. Bob, Kelly?
So, Adam, is there an investigation going on then?
Yeah, I mean, based on all of the documents we've received, based on the quotes we've heard from Troy Rawlings, the Davis County attorney, we firmly believe there is an investigation going on here. We cannot answer or speculate why OUR's attorney would send us a statement stating that there isn't one, but we're confident in our reporting, which is why we're here tonight.
Adam.
Now, of course, nothing came from the reporting, but this was Fox, of all people, that talked about this. Fox News. The Fox News. But now, they'll know to not talk about it, especially not negatively. So this is the Vice article. We are certainly not reading this. This would be a video in and of itself, but this is a very good breakdown into how Operation Underground Railroad actually works, and many other things. I highly recommend reading this video, reading this article, or at least listening to the article. It is a hour-long read. Yeah. So, I want to take a look at this video as well here. This is a video by Rebecca Watson. The guys behind Sound of Freedom are putting children at risk.
You know what I hate?
Do I have to do this again? I really hate. You know what I hate? I hate that YouTube's subtitles aren't automatically 100%. Why would you not? Whatever. That's not important.
Child sex trafficking. Yeah, I said it, and I meant
Hot take.
it. I'm opening with that searing hot take because the go-to response to anyone talking about what I'm going to be talking about today is to say, well, I guess you must be pro-child sex trafficking. So let's just get it out of the way right now. I am anti-sex trafficking in general. So yeah, you've probably guessed by now, today we're talking about 2023's biggest summer blockbuster, Sound of Freedom, starring Jim Caviezel as real-life person Tim Ballard, founder of the anti-trafficking charity Operation Underground Railroad. And as an aside, you should always see a red flag whenever someone uses Underground Railroad to mean anything other than the network of safe houses used by African Americans to escape slavery during the Civil War. Yes, even feminists who talk about setting up an Underground Railroad to provide abortions to women, get a new phrase. That one exists. It exists for a very good reason. Let's just come up with something else. Anyways.
Yeah, I don't know how much I agree with that. The reason Underground Railroad in general would work like that is because it elicits that idea of, oh, this is a way for people to escape and to get something, to escape or get something that is now becoming illegal, and a way for them to go underground and get the. It's not important, but I do disagree with that take. But moving on.
Sound of Freedom tells the supposedly true story of Ballard rebelling against his bosses at the Department of Homeland Security in order to fly a team of operatives to Colombia to rescue a child abducted by anonymous rebels who forced them into sex slavery. The movie's getting pretty good reviews, racking up a 75% score on Rotten Tomatoes and a 100% audience score despite a relatively small budget. I mean, it even beat out the recent Indiana Jones after Indiana Jones had already been in the theaters for several days, but still pretty.
So that's an important part too, right? Of course, you'll have people who are looking at this and they're, oh, it's blowing everything out of the way. Yeah, but like, what is it like? What is its current competition? You know what I mean? And again, all the conspiracy theory around it is, no publicity is bad publicity, right?
Impressive for a smaller budget film. All that said, I'm not planning to see this one in the theaters for a few reasons. Number one, because my month is already packed with a lot of movies. I mean, there's Indiana Jones. I have to. My dog is named after his dog. There's Oppenheimer. There's Barbie. There's a lot of important cinema.
Barbie unironically looks like it's going to be really good, by the way.
And second, no matter how good this movie may be, I'm disgusted by the true story behind it, and I don't want to give my precious money to awful people. Now, if you're aware of my channel's usual content, you might guess that the awful people that I'm referring to are QAnon conspiracy theorists. After all, the QAnon cult has been laser focused on accusations of child sex trafficking and abuse for many years now. Pizzagate happened back in 2016. That was when alt-right conspiracy theorists claimed that high-level Democrats like Hillary Clinton were operating a vast network of child sex rings, one of which was in the basement of a pizzeria in Washington, D.C. Also, apparently, Hillary Clinton ritually slaughtered a child. There was a lot happening in that. And sure enough, there are loads of conspiracy theorists who are super
blood level
excited about this movie, to the point that they're even making up new conspiracy theories about the movie. The alt-right thinks that AMC Theaters, for instance, is behind a massive campaign to stop them from seeing this movie. I mean, if I were a national chain of movie theaters that didn't want people to see a particular movie, I would simply not show that movie in my national chain of movie theaters. But QAnon thinks that instead AMC is screening the movie, but then faking emergency evacuations in the middle of it, or canceling it and refunding tickets because the air conditioning isn't working, even though it probably is working. So, and despite Operation Underground Railroad, or OUR as it's known, having previously disavowed QAnon conspiracy theories. Hello, gentle viewer. I apologize for the very sudden interruption, but this is post-production, Rebecca, and I have to share something incredible. I recorded this video on Thursday, July 13th, and at the time of that recording, there was a post on OUR's website titled, "Don't be fooled, help the cause of protecting children, fighting human trafficking by getting educated, staying informed with facts, not falsehoods." And
you know what? Let's take a look at this real quick. Don't be fooled. Help the cause of protecting children, fighting human trafficking by getting educated, staying informed with facts, not falsehoods. An increasing number of well-intentioned and concerned people are raising the level of discussion about child exploitation and human trafficking through social media and other channels. This is very much welcomed. The fact remains that children are being exploited, solicited, and sold for sex every single day, often by people that they trust. To stop this from happening in the United States and around the world, we must work together to spread truths about child exploitation and trafficking in our communities and online so that perpetrators can no longer hide in the shadows. Unfortunately, in some instances, the effort to knock out child exploitation and human trafficking is being harmed by individuals and a number of conspiracy theory groups who have chosen to latch onto child exploitation and human trafficking as a vehicle to deceptively bolster their claims. This is not welcomed, nor should it be supported. In order to effectively confront child exploitation and human trafficking in our communities, it is vital that everyone understand what is happening through the lens of accurate information. To this end, OUR is committed to providing factual information and affordable, actionable ways for people to contribute their voices and efforts toward protecting and rescuing exploited children. To be clear, Operation Underground Railroad does not condone conspiracy theories and is not affiliated with any conspiracy theory group in any way, shape, or form. From OUR's inception, we have been fighting for the innocent by partnering with the law enforcement and other NGOs who share our same mission to eradicate child sex trafficking. That is a very, very good article and statement. That was posted on September 8th of 2020. Wait till you hear what this woman says about it. I assume they're a woman. I might be misgendering them. What do you hear what they have to say about it?
It said, in part, the effort to knock out child exploitation and human trafficking is being harmed by individuals and a number of conspiracy theory groups who have chosen to latch on to child exploitation and human trafficking as a vehicle to deceptively bolster their causes. This is not...
Oh, I didn't realize they were just going to read the same thing I just read.
Welcome. I went to take a... support it. And so today I'm doing the editing on this video. Today is Monday, July 17th. And I went to take a screenshot of that article and whoops, page not found. We're very sorry. The page has been deleted. So I guess they changed their...
Yeah, that was from OUR's website.
...mind about staying informed with facts and not falsehoods. So I don't know. Maybe they've decided the conspiracy theories do help their cause after all, or at least it helps with the box office numbers. Anyway, back to the video. Some critics do think that Sound...
Wait, where did my subtitles go? Thank you.
of Freedom seems to intentionally leave it up to the audience to determine who in the United States is funding this $150 billion child trafficking industry. As Charles Bramesco writes over at The Guardian, the first rule of QAnon, you don't talk about QAnon where the normals can hear you. But hey, a good movie's a good movie, and honestly, if Sound of Freedom were getting better reviews from outlets that I trust, and if that was all there was to it, a few QAnon kooks, I'd probably carve out time to see it. But that's not all there is to it. You see, OUR is, as far as I can tell, a horrific organization that is not only not solving the problem of child sex trafficking, but is very possibly making the problem worse. Ballard founded OUR in 2013 and has claimed that in the years since, they have rescued thousands of trafficked children and young women around the world by literally raiding the areas where they're held captive and dragging them to freedom. OUR claims to be staffed by former CIA, past and current law enforcement, and highly skilled operatives. But several Vice News exposés have revealed that the organization is actually an amateurish operation full of unskilled real estate agents more concerned with looking like cinematic badasses than actually stopping the child sex trade. One man described the training he got from OUR, which included taking a random object and trying to sell it back to his fellow trainees, which is an exercise for people in sales. Also doing a scavenger hunt around a city and watching that old Psychology 101 Spot the Gorilla video with the people passing the basketball around. He also took a psychological exam in which a fellow trainee told him to just mention God to get past it. It took 10 minutes. He said, trust in God, and sure enough, he passed. At the end of the training, he and his fellow trainees were informed that if they were to develop an attraction to the child sex trafficking victims they were going out to save, they should alert someone immediately so that they can be removed from the situation, because apparently that happened quite often.
I cannot express my level of disgust for this right here. That was something they had in their training and something they had to say to the units of the operation. These kids that we're saving from sex trafficking, well, if you find yourself attracted to them and you want to do the thing with them we rescued them from, let one of us know, because we need to get you out of that temptation. Shouldn't even be a temptation. If you're the type of person who's going to have that temptation, look, I love sex. I made a joke about it earlier, but I'm a very horny person. I get it. I have a very high sex drive. A lot of people do. Not toward children. What the fuck is wrong with you? If you are that type of person and you think, hey, I could develop an attraction to these people, maybe, just maybe, you shouldn't be doing this in the first place. But we carry on.
Often. Other OUR operatives describe a rescue mission in which they pretended to be medical personnel helping the people living in a remote village near the Haitian border. Ballard was there and he had a camera following him the entire time as he wandered around the village secretly looking for a missing boy. The villagers started getting understandably paranoid about who these people really were, and eventually they threatened them until the group left town without finding the boy. Ballard had been positive the boy was in that village, but it turns out he got that intelligence from a psychic in Utah named Janet. A psychic named Janet. who told him this boy was definitely being held captive in this village. He flew an entire jump team to Haiti, and he even told the boy's father to come to that village because he was about to be reunited with his son. In one fell swoop, he probably destroyed that father's slim remaining hope while also destroying an entire village's trust in foreign medical aid, meaning that the next time a real organization that does good work like Doctors Without Borders shows up in that village to deliver free vaccines or other important medical care, they're more likely to face open hostility from the people they're trying to help. Amazingly, that might not even be the worst outcome from OUR's operations. Experts in anti-trafficking, former OUR operatives, and sex workers themselves all point out that OUR's tactics are actually increasing the chances that children will be put to work in the sex trade. For instance, one wealthy realtor gave an interview in which he admitted that he went to Haiti for OUR and used his unique skills to literally negotiate for children, just like I negotiate on a real estate deal. He told of one instance of haggling with traffickers who demanded $60,000 in payment for 2 children. They eventually settled on $30,000. Wow, great job, great deal. You just did it. You did a trafficking. Also, OUR admits that one of their tactics is to go into a town and throw a bunch of money around at the local bars until they attract the attention of pimps. If the pimps only offer them adults, they then ask them to go get them children, at which point the pimps go out and get children for them. At that point, OUR calls the police to come arrest everyone, and they leave town, full of smug satisfaction about a job well done. They are literally increasing the demand for child sex slavery and then leaving without concern for what's now going to happen to those children, let alone to the adult sex workers who were just arrested.
Exactly. They are creating the problem so they can be the hero and be the solution. Unironic, like syndrome shit in real life. Wild.
There are many more horrific details in that Vice article. I encourage you to read it in full before you even consider buying a ticket to see Sound of Freedom. I promise you that your movie ticket is not going to raise awareness or help anyone get out of the sex trade. All it's going to do is feed the ego of a bunch of wealthy white guys who want to believe that they're Rambo. I actually have a good friend who has worked in the anti-trafficking space for some time, and I asked him if he could recommend a better organization that's working to stop trafficking. And he pointed out that even the best NGOs are problematic in terms of sometimes actually harming sex workers, those who are there both voluntarily and involuntarily. So instead of recommending that you give your money to one of those, I'm just going to default to the Vice article again. They cite an organizer with Empower, which is a nonprofit that provides support to sex workers in Thailand, and it's run by Thai sex workers. And that organizer says to think about support for us all to be more secure and able to defend ourselves. Scholarships, apprenticeships, family payments for mothers, support for teenagers who have left home, because it's the same in Thailand and elsewhere as it is here in the United States. Real positive change rarely occurs due to action hero stunts. It happens thanks to boring, tireless work on the ground to improve everything surrounding the problem that you want to address. Child sex trafficking will only end when we provide everyone with safe homes and education and income and food and healthcare. It might not make a good movie, but it sure makes for a great society.
Yeah. The actual solution to these things is not this vigilante wannabe superhero stuff. It's boring. It's boring on the ground legal paper shit. It's not as exciting, but it's reality. I want to be perfectly clear. I don't have an issue necessarily with the fact that this is a faith-based movie from a faith-based organization or anything like that. I used to be religious myself, Christian specifically, and since 2020 I deconstructed that and I've been living in reality ever since. But there was a movie that I saw at one of the organization events that I went to. We had this thing where tons of different teens from youth groups could go to called CIY Move. The one we went to was located in Tennessee. I think it was for like everybody on the East Coast. I'm not entirely sure. I think there was one for the East Coast, one for the West Coast of America. But a bunch of different, non-denominational churches and such, more modern ones, if you will, went to this event. And it was a fun time. It was great. It was like a convention of sorts, a Christian convention, if you will. Great time. At the event, one of the show's movies that would be played was a film called Love Costs Everything. Now, this is a film about Christian persecution, which, we can talk about the persecution complex again, but regardless, there was something in this film that was very true, very accurate, that spoke to me. It actually handled the reality and the way that people are trafficked very, very, very well. I don't remember the specifics, all the characters' names or anything like that, but it was a compilation film. There were multiple characters with multiple stories and so on and so forth, many little vignettes. And I think it might have been the first one, maybe the second one, I'm not entirely sure, but one of the stories involved a young girl who had a very poor mother. Now, these people lived in a third world country. I don't remember what the country was, but they lived in a third world country. And the mother, to help make ends meet, when the girl turned, I believe she was like 13, maybe 14, sold her into sex slavery, in which she worked for a while. Eventually she was rescued, and great. But that film, that little, it wasn't a biopic, but it was like that film did a good job at presenting at least the aspect of how this kind of thing actually happens. It's not shady people just swooping up kids in broad daylight. It's parents that put their kids up to this stuff. It's kids that are desperate and have nowhere else to go. And a seemingly friendly hand offers them assistance. And it's true that films like Sound of Freedom hurt real potential victims for all the reasons that we discussed. Well, let's talk about the people that are so against this stuff. I've talked about this before, but last year, almost a year today, look at that. Horse heiress, 45, charged with aggravated sexual intercourse for allegedly having sex with a 14-year-old boy 4 times in one day. Now, we've talked about the type of comments that this kind of thing gets before. Now, the phrasing of that even, right? Has sex with. Not, the boy was raped. But the kind of people that respond to this, ask the boy if he wants another round. I can bet he would say yes, because I know I would. I was 14. Fact. I wonder what Johnny Rotten's profile looks. Oh, look at that. Okay, I will say it's kind of creative to have like a tumbleweed as your hair. That's kind of... Okay, they don't have any tweets. But who to follow? USA used to be cool. What about their likes? Oh, God. Regular everyday Trump hating. Okay, so good. We have some transphobia, some sexism, some bigotry in general. That's wonderful. I wonder... Okay. No tweets for Sound of Freedom. However, the Appalachians are underwater, but not Florida. Someone is yanking your chains? What? Face they make when they try to take your gun. Okay. Robert Archer. What's the over / under that all 4 times it was cowgirl? What's the over / under that? What does over / under means? I think it means what are the odds? 75% libertarian, PhD online, da-da-da-da-da. But Dems suck more, yeah, uh-huh. Prosecutor seen purchasing. I wonder, have they talked about Sound of Freedom? Or let's just search for freedom. Okay, no. However, you do see the kind of things that they like, the kind of people. Oh, January 6th Legal Defense Fund. Okay, so they support Jan 6. That's good. They support coups and overthrowing democracy. That's wonderful. Damn, I was born a little early. Now, these are just a few people, mind you. Oh, good, we're quoting the Bible here. We're taking some weird things Joe's done out of context. Yeah, some of the stuff he does is weird. He's a weird old guy. I agree. Husband will say, yeah, okay, good, we're doing something with the Hodge twins. Take that, Democrats. Okay, let's see here. Okay, nothing about Sound of Freedom. What about lights? Here. No? Nothing about Sound of Freedom? Okay. Oh, what did I just do? I don't know. Whatever. Wait, actually, what is that? Okay, we'll get to that later. Yeah, Lucky Boy, all this stuff. And the crowd, where were these women when I was young, right? Again, entrepreneur, devotee to Sigma male lifestyle. Yeah. You see these kind of people and where their political leanings lie. You see the kind of people. I've had people that have been like, it's not a political issue. First of all, everything's political. Sorry, just reality. Everything's political. If you live in a society, everything's political. Hang with people. Yeah. Where is it? Where was she when I was a kid? Yeah. The kind of guys that'll say shit like that. Exactly. So, do you think that they really care about children? That was assault. Of course, it's okay when it happens to a man, right? Or what about celebrity age clocks? Celebrity 18th birthday countdowns have long been the rage. So, we're not going to get into the specifics of this. You're welcome to read through it. But basically, there's this common thing of taking kids who are celebrities, female celebrities, and counting down to when they turn 18. Why? Because then they're fair game, right? To the point where people like Emma Watson, who was so happy to turn 18, had a paparazzi person, what are they called? I'm just going to call him paparazzi person, lay under her dress and take a picture because she was 18. This shit is disgusting. And the same people that will support and be okay with things like that are the same kind that are all, well, we gotta protect the kids. Sound of Freedom is such a great movie. QAnon is right. Trump was right. Democrats are terrible. They're coming for your kids. They want to trans your kids. They want to all that. Yeah, okay. But there is good news. Tim Ballard has stepped away from Operation Underground Railroad. Again, don't feel like reading the whole thing because it's not really about that. Not entirely. Now, I had another image which apparently went away. Here we are. Now, I think that P3DOs should actually get help. However, a lot of people, the same people that love this shit and that love this shit, that think like this, do the celebrity age clocks, are really happy about child beauty pageants and so on, will also get on their high horse and say, yeah, here's your pedophile treatment center. People that are actually pedophiles or victims. But we'll talk about the people. They need help. They are mentally unwell, and they need help. People who are victims need help. But criminalizing them for being a victim discourages them from getting help. Sensationalizing and making a false reality filled with misconceptions that only work to bolster the already extremely hot take, apparently, that kids need to be protected and child sex slavery is bad, are not how you go about making positive change. I have no problem with people that vote or think differently than me. I do think the right, the Republican politicians, are actually evil. I do believe that. They're in line with Nazis at this point. We've talked about it before. We'll talk about it again. But they are. But my friends, my family, my coworkers, your friends, family, coworkers, whatever the case, I don't think they're necessarily evil. I think they are confused, and they might think the same thing about us. They might also think you're evil, depending on how far they are into the conspiracy theories. But what we are pushing for with LGBTQ people and all these other different things is acceptance. And we are not forcing kids to become trans or anything else like that. We are trying to help kids and people in general understand who they are. And if that's different than the gender they were assigned with, then so be it. If they need to speak up and understand that, hey, just because my parent's my parent doesn't mean they necessarily have my best intentions. A lot do, but there are also many that don't. They need to be able to speak up for themselves. And at the legal level, when we talk about that bill that was blocked, yeah, again, we want kids to be able to speak up for themselves and not be discouraged from doing so, which is what bills like what was passed in California actually do. But it's easy to get these sensationalized headlines. It's easy to come up with these ideas. I wouldn't be surprised if certain things I say are clipped out of context. It's easy to take this stuff and to say they're a pedophile. It's low-hanging fruit. Just like we said in the beginning of the video, everybody hates pedophiles. It's the ultimate that's a bad person card. But what Sound of Freedom and the conspiracy theories around it push are not how you actually fight child trafficking. Of course, the people that made the film, involved in it, etc., don't actually care about any of that. They just want to be an action hero and yeah. And many people watching this, like I said, they wouldn't feel good about themselves. They wouldn't feel like, I'm doing such a good thing by watching a movie that shows pedophiles as the bad guys. Yeah, real brave. Hot take. Child trafficking is bad. I know. Shocking. So brave to say it. If people really didn't want others to see these movies, they would just simply not show them. You realize that happens, right? Like what an actual totalitarian government looks like China, when they just don't show movies because they have gay or black people, or scenes have to be cut that have gay or black people. But the fear-mongering, the persecution complexes, the conspiracies, all of it work in favor of publicity for the film. Look, if you want to see the film, by all means. I might eventually see it as well. I don't know. But if you believe that it is actually true, the way that that happened, or you think this is how kids are abducted, or you think this is how we fight back, you're just falling for their conspiracy bullshit. It is what it is. As always, these are my thoughts. Let me know what yours are in the comments down below. Follow me on social media for more, links in the description. Subscribe and ring the bell to stay up to date. Leave a like if you like, and if not, I hope you find something to do like. I know this can be a very divisive topic for many people. So please take care of each other in the comments, and take care of each other just in general out there. Later, guys. Peace and love.